tune in next week when, one of the most important aspects, one of the most used aspects of any reality TV show, or any TV show for that matter, any medium, is the cliffhanger. That's at the end of an episode where someone introduces a question. The narrator says, and next week we'll find out when or what, or something like that. They'll find out what's going on, or there's a missing piece of information, and the camera pans across this out of focus something, and you think, oh, that could be it. I could find out next week. But what it does, it just gives the viewer a reason to come back. Maybe the episode was just too big, the subject matter too wide, and the story arc was too long to cover in 44 minutes for an hour, or 22 minutes for a half hour, because it's really the only video time you're getting in there because of commercials, right? Sometimes cliffhangers are one of these, ooh, and you just didn't see it coming. You're like, I wasn't even thinking about that. Oh, that could be it. So I'll find that out next week. And of course, in this day and age of Netflix, you're just like, I'm just gonna hit next episode and just keep on going. That's where the binge watch keeps rolling in, the cliffhanger that just keeps you there, and you just roll right through a whole season, in an evening, or in a day. But sometimes there's cliffhangers like that. But I remember the worst cliffhanger that I ever saw, at least in my mind, it was the end of a movie called Back to the Future 2. And you got to the end and you're waiting and it wasn't wrapping everything up, and all of a sudden, boom, these big words just came on the screen. To be continued. And then they're out. And it's just like, oh, come on, man. And the whole theater was like, oh, no. And everybody was upset. But, but for sure, we all came back to see the next movie for sure. God is not without huge plot twists in his stories either. And today we're going to take a look at one of the most unique endings to a two-part episode in history. And as we look at the occurrences after Hezekiah prayed, and we'll see what happens when God shows up. But first, my name is Jim Campbell. I'm the lead pastor here at Bay West Church, and I'd like to say thank you so much for being a part of our services this morning. Whether this is your first time or you're just a weekly attender online. If you are to the point that you feel comfortable getting out because of COVID, we do meet in person, and we have been meeting since last June. We meet at 11:15 on Sundays at 100 Emerson Drive, Northwest, Palm Bay, Florida, 32907. I want to tell you a little bit of trick though. If you come out and you get ready to the building, you start to turn in, you'll be going, hey, wait a minute, I don't see anything that says Bay West. You're probably in the right place. Because the outside of the building was repainted recently, and our signs came down, and we haven't been able to get those back up yet. So just trust your GPS, 100 Emerson Drive, Northwest, Palm Bay, Florida, 32907, and you'll be there at 11:15. Come a few minutes early if you're a parent. We do have KIDZONE. We meet with our preschool, nursery, and elementary kids. We take precautions to be safe because we want our kids to be safe during this time of COVID. So we do things a little bit differently. If you come here before, you'll see when you get there a little bit, or you can check us out on the website, baywestchurch.com, and see what's up there. If you're a first-time person, go to the KIDZONE page off of our website, and you can plan your first visit, where you go ahead and type in all your information and you send that in, and we'll have your tags ready when you get there. No worries. If you're not comfortable coming out, we're always going to be here online. We're going to keep on doing this right here, so no worries. Stay with that just fine. But if you're a parent and you still want to say, well, I still want to help discipling my kid, because we recognize you are the primary spiritual source for your child. They are looking at you, and we want to help you with that. We're not in any way, when we do KIDZONE at church on Sundays, we're not trying to take anybody's place. We're trying to augment and help you, help partner with you to help your kids come to know Christ and grow spiritually. And the way we do that right now is you can go to facebook.com and search Bay West KIDZONE, and we put a video up. Our children's leader, Maggie Pearson, who's awesome, puts a video up every week that's very well done, that talks about biblical values, and you can watch that with your kid, and I guarantee they'll love to watch it. It's awesome, it's fun, it's exciting, and they give a study guide at the end. And what you can do is just some questions that you can have a discussion with your kid about the values and the biblical values that they just were taught in the video. And it's just a great time and a great way for us to help you. You don't have to be a Bible scholar to ask a few questions. You can just discuss it. And if you don't, and anyway, I'll give you a secret anyway. Every good theologian needs to have a good dose of I don't know in your vocabulary. Hey, because you know what? None of us know everything. And if you ever get answer, if your kid ever asks a question that you don't know, don't be afraid to say, I don't know, because you'll teach them that it's okay not to know. But you can say this, I know somebody I can contact and we'll find out. And so you call us, and you'll see the number on the screen. You can call our church. We'll be glad to help you. You can message our page or email us or whatever, and we'll do the best we can to help you out with that, because we want to support you as you raise your child to follow Jesus Christ. If you are not in a life group yourself, we have loads of different life groups. And most of them are hybrid. There's some online component and some in person. We have one, I believe, that is totally online, and we have one that is totally in person. And we have some great ones. I love our family life group that we have every other Sunday night, because that's just where parents and kids get together, and the kids play for a little bit. And Maggie and Aaron, Maggie, our children's leader, and her husband Aaron do a great job putting together a really creative lesson with a lot of activity for the kids on that. And we break bread into that. We have a good time there. So I encourage you to do that. I love my life group that I lead on Wednesday. It's called the Enrich Life Group, and it's totally online, and we kind of aimed this at young families. So what we were able to do, with COVID, you do more stuff online, so it kind of opened up the door for us to do that. So we do a Zoom meeting from 8 to 9:15, right after the kiddos go to bed, and we discuss together, we pray together, we hear about each other's lives. I love my life group. Some great folks in there, and you can join any of our groups by going to baywestchurch.com/groups, and then click Find a Group, and they'll display all of the groups, and you click the one you want and say join that group, and a leader of that group will get in touch with you and help you on board into the group. It's a great time. I highly recommend it. If you would like to follow along my sermon notes, you can do that by going to baywestchurch.com/notes, and we will be displaying the notes that are germane to this weekend. So if you're catching this months down the road and you go to that and you're like, wait, the notes don't match up, we'll change the link in the actual description of the video, depending on the interface that you watch. But it'll be the weekend that these things air. Will be at that particular link, baywestchurch.com/notes. If you have the Little Brown Bible app, hey, no worries. Just go to the events section, type in Bay West Church, and it should pull up our notes right there, and you can follow along as in a few minutes when I preach. If you'd like to give your tithes and offerings, we make that opportunity for obedience available. We just got through taking up our Save Rivard love offering, and it was awesome. We exceeded our goal by almost a third. And this time, where things are so hard and tight financially and stuff like that, God was so great. We exceeded our goal because we support Love Inc., which does so much for so many people here in Brevard County. We're a partner with them, helping people, not from folks who are down in the luck, to folks who need counseling, to folks who need financial help, all kinds of things. We're so thankful for them and the mission, the ministry that they do. We've been able to partner to work together to help clients in the city, but also been able to help support them in what they do. They've done so much during the time with COVID too. So really stepped up with that. We love Inc., and we're thankful to be a part of them as well. And thank you to all you out there who gave, to help support them. That's some great work they're doing, and we're so happy to be able to support them as well. Right now we're just going to go ahead and jump into some worship is what we're going to do. I'm going to turn the time over to Josue Gomez, who is our worship leader, and his worship team. And I challenge you to put the music on the biggest screen you have, turn it up wide open, sing either out loud or in your heart, listen to the words, allow God to speak to you and prepare your heart to hear the message about what happens when God shows up.
Let the king of my heart be the mountain where I run, the fountain I drink from. Oh, he is my song. shadow where I hide, the ransom for my life. Oh, yes, my song. You are good, good. Oh, 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 let the King of my heart be the wind inside my sails, the anchor in the waves. Oh, he is my song. Let the King of my heart be the fire inside my veins, the echo of my days. Oh, he is my song. You are good, good. Oh, you are good, good. Oh, you are good, good. Oh, you are good, good.
You're never gonna let me down. 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 'Cause you are good, good. Oh, you are good, good. Oh, you are good, good. Oh, you are good, when the night is holding on to me, God is holding on. And when the night is holding on to me, God is holding on.
You know, usually in the second part of a two-part episode, there's kind of a recap that happens. You know, and here we're in the second part of this episode of this reality, from God's reality book, where, you know, we watch reality TV all the time, and we kind of, when you make that, you kind of contrive a situation, and you get some actors and you put them together, and you put the video together, and you pitch it to a network and all this type of stuff. Well, God, He just creates reality. And through that reality, He reveals who He is and teaches and inspires us, and that's kind of how God does it. God's been on the reality train for a really, really, really long time. So he created this situation. And last week we took a look at Hezekiah, and this is kind of where we were. Last week, we learned about Hezekiah, who was the greatest king of Judah. He followed God. When he came on board, they had some bad kings before him, and they had worshipped other gods, and he got rid of all the other gods in the nation, and he kind of restored people to following God the way they were. And in doing so, he stopped paying tribute to this giant, powerful nation called Assyria. And Assyria was so powerful, all the nations around them were scared of them. They kind of pay them off. Here, we'll pay tribute to you so you won't come beat us up and take all that we have. And Hezekiah kind of stopped doing that. He tried to get away from that. Well, after a while of not getting his tribute, came Sennacherib of Assyria, got really angry about it. He kind of had enough of it, and so he's like, I'm just going to bring my army over here, and we're going to take over Judah, and we're just going to invade them and just annihilate them. And it was probably, he was tired of not getting his tribute, but it was probably more of a respect thing than it was a money thing, because Judah was small, and they couldn't give as much money as the Assyrian Empire had at all. He was probably dropping the bucket, but he just liked to, he wanted to be the most powerful person, so that's what the way they did. And see, so he sends this massive army to sit outside of Judah to try to take them over. And so, see, then Hezekiah, he tries to fix it. He tries to backtrack, oh, I'm sorry. He tries to apologize. It's all my fault. He said, look, I'll pay whatever you want, and they give him this exorbitant amount. And he pays it, and he hawks everything he can from the kingdom and gives it to them, and they don't care. We're going to run over you anyway, and they're talking trash to him. They're being very hateful and threatening, and they try to run his name down to his advisors, to the people, and finally they send him this letter from King Sennacherib, sends him a letter directly that says, look, you don't need to trust your God. We're going to run over you. You don't have anything. You don't have what it takes. I mean, it was funny, even some of the trash talking that his advisors were doing was like, hey, I tell you what, we'll give you 2,000 horses if you can find 2,000 guys to ride them. It's just like you don't even have a choice. And even then you wouldn't be able to stand against the smallest army that we have. I mean, it was just harsh. And what Hezekiah did was finally he goes to the Lord and he takes that letter and he unrolls the scroll in the temple before the Lord and he prays. And we looked at his prayer last week. We learned that we need, and when adversity comes to us, we need to acknowledge the power and place of God, that we need to acknowledge the scope of the problem, not so that we can figure out how to fix it or be afraid of it, but so that when God brings the solution, we can praise God adequately for what he did. And we need to ask for God's solution, not our own. We don't need to tell God what to do. We just need to say, hey, help. Do it your way, because that's always the best. So here today, we pick this up, after Hezekiah's prayer. And see, God, after Hezekiah prays, God answers Hezekiah. It's kind of funny how that works. It really kind of is, because Hezekiah prays to God, and then God sends him a message back. He didn't talk right to him. He sends a message back through the prophet Isaiah. And see, it all kind of happens right together, all in these verses. And so you kind of wonder, so how did that work? Did Hezekiah pray, and then 3 days later, here came Isaiah? Or did Hezekiah pray, and God had already told Isaiah? And he just, when Hezekiah looks up, there's Isaiah, and Isaiah says, here's what the Lord has to say about you. We don't know, but we know that the Lord answered Hezekiah through the prophet Isaiah. And I want to share with you what he said. Let's read starting in verse 20 of 2 Kings chapter 19. And it says, Then Isaiah, son of Amoz, sent this message to Hezekiah. This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. I have heard your prayer about King Sennacherib of Assyria. And the Lord has spoken this word against him. The virgin daughter of Zion despises you and laughs at you. The daughter of Jerusalem shakes her head in derision as you flee. Whom have you been defying and ridiculing? Against whom did you raise your voice? At whom did you look with such haughty eyes? It was the Holy One of Israel. By your messengers you have defied the Lord. You have said, with my many chariots I have conquered the highest mountains, yes, the remotest peaks of Lebanon. I have cut down its tallest cedars and its finest cypress trees. I have reached its farthest corners and explored its deepest forest. I have dug wells in many foreign lands and refreshed myself with their water. With the sole of my foot, I stopped up all the rivers of Egypt. But have you not heard? I decided this long ago. Long ago, I planned it, and now I am making it happen. I planned for you to crush fortified cities into heaps of rubble. That's why their people have so little power and are so frightened and confused. They're as weak as grass, as easily trampled as tender green shoots. They're like grass sprouting on a housetop, scorched before it can grow lush and tall. But I know you well, where you stay and when you come and go. I know the way you have raged against me. And because of your raging against me and your arrogance, which I have heard from myself, I will put my hook in your nose and my bit in your mouth, and I'll make you return by the same road on which you came. See, now this is a pretty dynamic response from God. Can you imagine the God of the universe saying something like that to you? We see he brought it to King Hezekiah, but it turned and he was saying, okay, I'm just let me step forward and see and take over this discourse with King Sennacherib. Now see, there's one of the first things I want you to see out of this, what we can see from God's response that we can always trust God for, is God sees you. He hears you. He said in verse 20, he says, I have heard your prayer about King Sennacherib of Assyria. He said, look, when you come to God, you always have his attention. You get God's attention. You know, see, sometimes when my children come to me, as much as I would like to, I can't give them my full attention immediately. You know, if it's something serious, yes, I throw everything down and look at it, but sometimes I'm in the middle of something, and Dad's just got a one-track mind. I just do. You know, I mean, if they ask me, you know, I can't make a peanut butter jelly sandwich and tell you about, you know, who's the king of thieves. I can't tell you about both those things at the same time. Just let me do one, and then I'll get to the other, because I'm just limited. I have a one-track mind on that. But see, here's the wonderful thing about God. Every one of us, every time that we come to God, we get the full measure of his attention at all times. He is always there, day or night. And when we go to him in prayer, when we seek him out, God is there for us. We can always count on that. No matter where you are, God sees you. He sees you, he feels you. And here's the other thing, God knows what's going on. You know, sometimes we don't think that, you know, but in verse 22, you remember he said, whom have you been defying and ridiculing? Against whom did you raise your voice? At whom did you look with such haughty eyes? It was the Holy One of Israel. He went through all these things that Sennacherib had done. He said, look, I know about all of that. I knew. I'm the one who allowed you to do all that stuff. I put that, I made it, it's kind of like, I always think about it like a fight. Sometimes you got a fighter, you know, remember when one of the old Rocky movies, you know, where Rocky, I believe it was the second one, after he was the champion, you know, they were setting him up with all these opponents that he could beat really easy because they didn't really know if he was really as good as he was supposed to be after he become the champion, and he found that out and he was really upset. Well, this is what he's kind of telling Sennacherib. So I put you up against a bunch of fruitcakes, man. They're a bunch of cupcake fighters. You know, that's what's going to happen. You know, you haven't faced anybody that has any power. And I wanted you to do that. I wanted you to win a bunch of stuff because I wanted you to come here and realize how powerful I am. And so what he says, look, so God knows what's going on. But interestingly enough, look at what he said. He said, whom have you been defying and ridiculing? And he goes through this. He said, it was the Holy One of Israel. In other words, you think you've been talking to those other countries. You think you've been insulting my boy Hezekiah and his nation. But what you've really been doing is you've been saying that junk to me. To me. You know, far too often in our lives, you know, we think that the point of conflict is about us. You know, someone says something ugly to us. Someone does something ugly to us. Maybe someone steals from us. Maybe we experience this hard situation and everybody seems to be coming at us and we think, oh, woe is me, God, you don't love me, look what's coming at me. And what we don't realize, you know, maybe we've done something wrong and we think, oh, it's all my fault, I shouldn't have done it. Or maybe God doesn't like me, you know, because of this. You know, maybe people don't like me. I'm doomed, I'm cursed, I'm the worst, you know, lions, tigers, and bears, oh my, whatever. We think about all those things, but conflict, adversity that comes against us, even in a sinful world, is about God more than it's about us. Far more. You know, when things go wrong in the world, It's really a God thing. Now, are you saying, Jim, you're saying God's making things go wrong? You're saying God's doing wrong things? No, that's not what I'm saying at all. But what I'm saying is at the bottom of everything, that this is God's reality TV show. He's the star. I don't just all of a sudden become the star, even though from my perspective, that's all I see. In the middle of all of this, I'm playing a part. You and I both, we're playing a part here in God's reality TV show, but it is about Him. You know, when I choose to do wrong, I might be wrong against someone else, but the greatest problem is I sin against God. Remember David said, you know, against you, his sin was so egregious. You remember that one part? There was one time in David's life, he kind of went off the rails, and he committed adultery with a woman, and they got kind of pregnant, and then his buddy Uriah, it was her wife, it was his wife, and he was one of his generals, and he was an honorable man, and you know, he tried, and David ultimately ended up, as he tried to cover it up, he never could cover up his sin, and ultimately ended up having Uriah killed on the battlefield, trying to cover up his sin. But when he was confronted by a prophet with that, he went in the morning, he confessed his sin, but he said something interesting. He said, look, against you and you alone, God, have I sinned. Wait a minute. There's Uriah's family, there was all these people, all the people that trusted him, and he had just gone off the rails, and he's talking about against you and you alone have I sinned, God. What he was saying is our sin, when we do something wrong, it's not, it may be bad for somebody else, but that is just a speck. That's just a grain of sand on the beach to the wrong that was done to God when we made that choice. You know, when someone else does something wrong to me, yeah, it's wrong to me, but it's much more of an insult to the Lord. You know, when the world breaks down around me, it's because at some point sin broke the world, and while I'm a part of those things, it's really about God and people choosing to go the other way and the consequences of that. It's really a God thing. So what he's saying here is, look, you know, when we have adversity come against us, you know, that person that says something ugly to us, like, man, that really hurt my feelings, that was so bad. Well, the truth is that they're fooled. They're fooled into think that sin is something that they need to follow. You know, and that's kind of what happens there, but it's really about, God, there's a bigger thing at play. Now, the adversity may be aimed at you, but it's not for you. God's going to fix it, and you along with it, but it's for His reasons and not simply ours. I'll tell you another thing to think that we learn from God is not only, you know, not only does God see you, not only does God knows what's going on, but God is in control. You can trust that. You know, in verse 25, he said, look, but have you not heard? I decided this long ago. Long ago, I planned it, and now I'm making it happen. I planned for you to crush fortified cities into heaps of rubble. Wow. How do you think Sennacherib felt when he heard that? Look, you don't think I know about that? I'm the one who let you do that. I'm the one who made this happen. It's not you. You know, so many times we think we make everything happen in the world and the world revolves around us, but it's not. It's God. He's in control. And here's the thing. In the middle of adversity, when we are in adversity, when something comes at us or we've damaged something and we are in it, and oh no, we're in the oh no moment of, oh no, I did it this time, or someone did it. Now I've got to act. I've got to fix it. You know, when we're in those moments, you know, God, all of God's promises are still in effect for us at those moments. The outcome will always, when we submit to God and we follow God, the outcome will always be victory for Him. But it doesn't always mean that it's just immediately okay. You know, we may have to walk through some things, you know, and instead of making the situation to be like, God, why do you hate me? Or you're not looking over here at this point in time, we should shift our perspective to, God, how are you going to prosper me through this? You know, how are you going to come through in this, God? I want to see this. I want to keep my eyes wide open to see all the details of the story and enjoy it. You know, sometimes people watch a TV show and, you know, I'm tempted to do this. Sometimes I get on my phone or I'm playing a game or something, I watch a show and I can hear it, so I kind of know what's going on, but I'm not fully tuned into it. You know, sometimes we can do that with life and you miss stuff because there's all kinds of stuff going on. And you miss what's going on the screen, and maybe I'll stop and something will happen, and I'll go, hey, what happened there? And they're like, well, 3 minutes ago they did this while you were watching your phone. Sometimes we can do that with life. And I challenge us not to be just sucked into our phone, but be looking, especially when conflict comes. Don't get all inward and be like, oh, it's the worst thing in the world for me. But start to look outward and go, okay, God, how are you going to come through? I don't want to miss a thing. You know, what God is doing, you know, it's so often in the direst of circumstances. The direst circumstances are really only the precursor to the greatest victories. You know, everything that could go wrong goes wrong, because when everything that can go right goes right later, God is making a point. He just is. You know, He's highlighting text on a page and drawing a red circle around it for everyone. He's shining the brightest spotlight into a place where you couldn't see your hand in front of your face. He's saying to you and everyone near you, look, I'm here, I'm in charge, recognize me and follow me, because it's right, and it's right for you. Because the last thing we need to understand is that God will win in the end. It's going to happen. You remember when Sennacherib was talking trash to Hezekiah? I referenced it earlier. In verse 23, he said, look, strike a bargain with my master, the king of Assyria. I'll give you 2,000 horses if you can find that many men to ride on them. I mean, that is just straight up talking trash. That's, you know, I mean, what are you going to say? Why did God, have you ever wondered why God leaves stuff like that in the story? Why does He do that? You know, I think it's for this detail here at the end. Because in verse 35, it says this. It says, that night, this was after He had said, look, I'm going to take care of it. And He told him, look, I'm going to do some stuff for you. I'm going to take care of this stuff for you. He says this is what happened. That night, the angel of the Lord went out to the Assyrian camp and killed 185,000 Assyrian soldiers. When the surviving Assyrians woke up the next morning, they found corpses everywhere. Then King Sennacherib of Assyria broke camp and returned to his own land. He went home to his capital of Nineveh, and he stayed there. See, I want you to get this picture. See, here's Judah, which Sennacherib is talking trash to him, like, you can't even find 2,000 soldiers to fight me. Imagine looking at that and realizing that here's when he said the angel of the Lord came down and killed 185,000, but that wasn't even all of the soldiers. The other Assyrians woke up. There's no telling how many 100,000 soldiers were there. That Hezekiah couldn't even come up with 2,000. We're literally talking about an army 100 times or more the size of the best he could do. And in one night, God said, I got it. And remember what He said about Sennacherib? He said, look, I'm going to send you home on the same road you came. And He did. He put him right back on the same horse he rode in, and he went out and was gone. And he traveled back home, and he stayed and didn't come back. See, the reason that God left this in the story was not only to send a message to Hezekiah, not only to send a message to the people that He was in control, but He left this in the story for a message to everyone who would ever read it. He said, look, it doesn't matter how big the conflict is, how angry that person is, how overwhelming the opposition, how many people are standing against you. If you're following me, I'm bigger than that. Remember what we said last week, to ask for God's solution, not ours? The solution that it would be His way. You know, He told Sennacherib that it was for, in verse 34, he says, for my own honor and for the sake of my servant David, I will defend this city and protect it. See, the solution was God's. See, because it was about God from the beginning. We forget that sometimes in the middle of our situations. But what are some of the implications for realizing that it's God's battle, not mine? One is we may not see the resolution. You know, it's not like a show on TV. There's no cool music in this slow motion walk, and as the pan across the dead bodies out all over the place, and the close up of Sennacherib's face when he goes, oh my goodness, you know, that look, you know, we don't get that moment of resolution. We may not get the vindication. You know, we want to make a cool speech and go, yeah, oh yeah, you think you're bad? Well, watch this. Get him, God. And God goes, bam. It goes, whoo, check me out. We want to do that because that's our prideful nature. But you know, God doesn't work that way. That's not how it goes because it's not about us. In fact, if your solution is about you, it's not really a solution at all. It's just another gateway to another problem that you haven't seen yet. It needs to be about God, where God will get the glory and get the glory alone. You know, it doesn't matter if you see no way out of it. Look for Judah. There's 2,000 was a goal they couldn't attain, and that would be to fight 200,000. They couldn't attain the small goal to lose miserably. But God was bigger than that. And for us, this story reminds us that in our adversity, that we should always go to Him because one, He's paying attention. Two, He knows the situation so much better than you or I do. He is in control. No matter if it's all chaos around you, before you, behind you, all around you, it may seem like it's nuts, but God goes before us. God goes behind us. God is around us. And when we stay in Christ, we have that protection. The greatest place we can be is in Christ as Christ is in us. It's a protection. The greatest place you can be is the center of God's will, no matter the chaos that around you that it might take you into. You know that God knows this situation. God is in control and has been in control all along, and that God is going to handle it, no matter what it is. You see, we need to take comfort in that, and we need to realize that every battle and every problem that comes to us is a God problem. It's a God thing. It's a God gonna handle it. And if we follow Him and follow Him in what He says and just get out of His way, He's gonna show us a victory probably like we've never seen before. I know that Hezekiah had never seen anything like that. I know I've never seen anything like that. Could you imagine you and your tiny little band of guys sitting there with people as far as the eye could see, and then you wake up the next morning and probably half or a pile of them are dead and the rest of them are just turned tail running, and you're going, what did I do? You didn't do anything. Could you imagine some people wonder, I wonder if Sennacherib's going to come back. I wonder if he's going to come back. And then Hezekiah's going, hey, you know, God said He's going to send him out on the same road he came in, and he ain't coming back. We don't have to worry about him no more. He goes back and stays in His place. You know, that's the type of God that we serve. When God handles it, He handles it fully. And we need to trust Him for what we run up against. Now, maybe you are a Christ follower out there, and maybe you're in the middle of a tough situation. Maybe last week we talked about, you know, here's you know, this adversity that we're in the middle of, and we talked about we need to acknowledge God's place. We need to acknowledge the problem, and you got to the end of the cliffhanger. It was like, acknowledge the problem and ask for God's solution, but what is He going to do? And this week we find out that God sees you. No matter what you're going through, maybe you've cried out to Him so many times and it just seems like it's not getting any better, and God sees you. You need to understand that He does. He hears you. Not only that, but God knows the situation. He knows what's going on. He knows more than you. He knows what's working in the heart of those other people. He knows what's behind the scenes over there. He knows what is about to come. He knows what's around the corner that you can't even see. And He's saying, hang on, trust me, follow me. I got it. Just like Isaiah told Hezekiah before, remember? He said, don't worry about it. You know, don't worry about it. Relax in the power of God. We need to remember too that God is in control. And not only is He in control right now, He's been in control the whole time. Don't freak out, because God is going to handle it. And what we need to do is we need to catalog the problem so that we can praise Him adequately when He fixes it. We need to keep our eyes wide open, not on ourselves, not on our phones, not on everything around the world. We need to keep looking for God to see what He's going to do and how He's going to show up, because we don't want to miss the outcome that God has for us and the glory it's going to bring Him. And we need to be prepared and ready to say thank you, praise you. In fact, I would say right now, you look at whatever situation that you're in the middle of and you look at God and you say, God, thank you. I praise you. I thank you right now because I know it may seem bad at the moment, but I know you're just setting up something that you're going to show up and do something amazing, and you're going to bring glory to yourself, and you're going to change people's lives, and I want to be part of that, so I submit to you. I want to follow you, and that's what's up. If you're a Christ follower, that's what you do. If you're not a Christ follower out there, I just encourage you, the first thing you need to do, regardless of whatever situation you're in, you're facing the biggest battle in the world, because it doesn't matter what you're facing, you're facing it alone without the Lord. You need to start a relationship with Christ. You need to realize that, hey, we've all sinned. We've all cut off our relationship with God. We said, no, God, that's fine. I'll do it my way. And we've chosen that, and in doing that, we've made the weirdness between us and Dad, basically. And the only thing's left for us to come back and say, you know what, you're right, Dad. I'm wrong. I want to do it your way. I want to commit my life to follow you. And we come back to God and we say that, we commit it, we realize, hey, there's a penalty for my sin, and my way just leads to death. Spiritual death, physical death, all kinds of death. But God's way leads to life. So I want to get off my plan, because my plan stinks. And I'm going to get on your plan, God. I'm going to follow you. And that's what we need to do. And you do that by realizing, basically, that Jesus, what happened was we had sin. There's no way we can make it up. God knew that. He had it figured out all the time. He sent Jesus. He lived on earth. He was his son, fully God, fully man. He lived on earth for a few decades, and then he never sinned during that whole time, and he shared and taught with us, showed us who God was, and then he died on a cross unjustly. He didn't deserve a death, but he took one of the worst deaths possible to pay the price for our sin. And because he was so great and he was God and didn't deserve it, he paid the price for our sin, and that we can connect to God again through him and his righteousness. And we can finally get back to the place we were supposed to be from the beginning. The way we do that is we recognize we've sinned. I'm a sinner. That's what I am. I mean, being a sinner, if someone calls you a sinner, that's not an insult, that's a reality. Okay? That's everybody. We've all done it. And we recognize that. And we say, God, I recognize I can't do it on my own, so I need you. And we confess with our mouth that Jesus is Lord. Outwardly, we say, yes, that's what I'm going to be. And then from the inside of our heart, we give our hearts, we can believe in our hearts that God has raised him from the dead. We believe in our hearts so strongly that we're going to follow him for the rest of our lives. And I begin to make my decision. I abandon my way of doing things, and I'm going to do it God's way. Even when my way seems a whole lot more desirable than God's way, I'm going to trust God and do it his way. And I'm going to follow him and commit my life and trust him and bear him out and see the victory on the other side. And that's what you do. And when you do that, a lot of people, they pray and they make that decision, but it's not a magic words that you can say. It's a decision of your heart. And when that happens, the Holy Spirit comes in, God comes in, does all the work. He changes you from the inside, it tells us in the Bible. It tells us you become a new creation. The old is gone, the new has come, and he begins to change you daily throughout the rest of your life. And over a period of time, he changes what you want to do. He changes you to be more like him. And in the meantime, there's choices we have to make. We're still struggling with sin. We still struggle. And we have to make choices and learn and grow. But that relationship with God of learning and growing and walking with him every day through tough stuff and adversity sometimes shows us more of him. And we grow closer to him every day. And then someday we'll die and we'll go to heaven from there. That's kind of what's up. If you've made that decision today, I would love to know about that. Just please click the connect button if you depend on the interface you're watching it on. If you are watching an interface that's just a video and doesn't have that, you can just go to baywestchurch.com/connect and type in your information there. If you have a prayer request that you would like for us to pray for you, we have a prayer team that prays every week. And so you can send that prayer request in off of that connect card as well. If you just let us know what's up. If you need a pastor to talk with you or something, just check that, let us know, and we will follow up with you. But I want to thank you so much for being a part of Bay West today. Hope you'll be back next week. Easter is upcoming. And I hope that if we weren't able to have an Easter service last year because of COVID, but I'm hoping that in our area with the cases kind of going down, the vaccinations starting and stuff like that, that people will begin to feel a little bit more comfortable who've not felt as comfortable, and we'll be able to have a great kind of reunion day on Easter. That's April the 5th upcoming. We have some great things planned for our kids, magazines and great stuff with our kids, some things that we've never done before here at Bay West. So it's really great. I look forward to seeing those that would come out. If you're at home still, no worries at all. We will still be here online with you. So thank you so much for all that you're doing. If you're not part of a life group, please join that, baywestchurch.com/groups. That's how you jump into there. Parents, go to Bay West KIDZONE, search that on Facebook.com, join our group, check the curriculum there and the study guides, and see all the things that we have to help you there as well. If you want to give, obviously, baywestchurch.com/gives. Give for your tithes and offerings, and we hope to see you next week, either here or in person. You guys have a great week. Later.